most important thing is really who you associate with. You want to associate with people that are better than you are. I mean, basically, you'll go in the direction of the people that you associate with, and you want to have the right heroes. You want people who want to emulate somebody. You better pick very carefully who you want to emulate. And obviously, you can't pick your parents. They're going to have an enormous influence on you, but you don't get a choice on that. But you get choices as you go down the line, and who you admire, who you want to copy. And the most important for most people in terms of that decision is their spouse. It's also important in terms of a partner in business, but the partner in life is the most important one. You want to pick a spouse that's a little bit better than you are. I've been surprised by all kinds of things in the last 10 years about the economy. I mean, I don't think there was any economist I've ever read that talked about negative interest rates for long periods of time. I mean, if you go back and read Keynes or you read Samuelson, you read any of them, they do not get into a negative rate environment. I think now there's still 11 trillion that's of government debt around the world that's at a negative rate. So we've never seen it before, and we've never seen, at least the conventional wisdom on a sustained period of long and growing deficits while the economy is getting better, extremely low interest rates, and really very little inflation. So something different is happening, but something different happens all the time. So, and that's one reason economic predictions just don't enter into our decisions. Charlie Munger, my partner, and I, 54 years now, we've never made a decision based on an economic prediction. We make business predictions about what individual businesses will do over time, and we compare that to what we have to pay for them. But we have never said yes to something because we thought the economy was going to do well in the next year or 2 years, and we've never said no to anything because we were right in the middle of a panic, even if the price was right. Well, I think cyber poses real risks to humanity, forgetting about the problem of even misinformation. I'm just thinking of, we have railroads running over 22,000 miles of track, and some of them are carrying ammonia, and some of them are carrying, chlorine and things. We have to carry them. We have no choice about that, and we're required by law to carry them. And I would rather do that in a non-cyber world than a cyber world. And there are all kinds of things. The problem about something like cyber is that it's moving, and it's just unpredictable whether you'll get some crazy guy like stuck the anthrax in there. What they can do becomes magnified. I mean, when you saw what 19 guys did, on 9/11. I mean, tools in the hands, or potentially in the hands, of either crazy individuals, crazy groups, or even a few crazy governments, are really something. And we don't necessarily know what all the tools they have are, and that is moving all the time. I mean, again, Einstein said, I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. I mean, it's a dangerous world. Newspapers went, if you're the only one in town, now there were some competitive situations, but it was survival of the fattest. Whichever paper was the fattest won, because it had the most ads in it, and ads are news to people. I mean, they want to know what supermarket's having the bargain on Coke or Pepsi this weekend, and so on. I mean, it upsets the people in the newsroom to talk that way, but the ads were the most important editorial content from the standpoint of the reader. Overall, in any big daily, I mean, if you were looking for a job, you had one place to look, and that was the classified section. If you were looking for an apartment to rent, and those pages were just dozens and dozens of pages. That's disappeared. I mean, the things that are essential to you. News is what you don't know that you want to know, and what happened in national sports. The moment it happens, and you can go watch video of it and so on. You can go to ESPN and see what's going on in that. You know what's happening in politics. You know what's happening in the stock market. I used to look at the stock market pages the next morning. Before I delivered the papers, I checked them out. The world has changed hugely, and it did it gradually. It went from monopoly to franchise to competitive to toast. Generally speaking, when companies are sold, they sell at premiums. Now, they sell at premiums because the buyer thinks they can do all kinds of wonderful things with it that the present management isn't doing. I've often said that, on the Fortune 500, maybe 250 companies should buy the other 250, and they just totally shift every year because everybody thinks they can run it better than the next guy, which is what you're saying when you buy it in its entirety. I don't think we can run anything better than the people that are running when we buy it. So it's hard for me to get to a premium, and the premiums have gotten more dramatic, and the leverage available has gotten pretty generous, and that causes people to buy it. People love to buy what they can't pay for. Basically, if somebody will also put up the money, and we don't calculate leverage into any of our purchases. In other words, we don't say if we buy this thing for $10 billion, we can borrow $7 billion against it, because we're really using up Berkshire's general credit. I mean, I could apply 70% leverage to any one of our companies to make it look better, but the truth is it's the general credit of Berkshire that's doing that. So it'd be crazy to, just because I want to buy something, say, well, I'm buying this with 70% leverage, so therefore I can pay this kind of silly price. But when the CEO, well, you've got a huge bundle of money that's committed to buying something. They're getting paid a fee, tick, 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 every day to buy it. Now, they do get paid whether they buy it or not, things or not, to some extent, which is kind of an interesting business approach, but they do. But they also, let's just say there's $1 trillion out there to do it. I don't know the figure. But beyond that, they probably $2 trillion of leverage. They probably use 2/3 leverage if they could, on a purchase, something close to that. So you really got like $3 trillion of maybe purchasing power using these assumptions, which I know aren't correct, but they're in the general ballpark. Well, $3 trillion, there's only 30 trillion of U.S. companies, roughly. And you can take Amazon and Apple and Berkshire, and they aren't for sale. So you got trillions that aren't. So the demand supply is really tilted. And
it doesn't work in your favor.
It works 100% against us, because whenever you've got somebody that gets paid for the upside and locks up the money for 10 years, or so, they've got every incentive to keep doing that. 20 years ago, I had a fellow call me whose name you would know, and he said, Warren, I don't know anything about the reinsurance business. And he said, we got this reinsurance company offered to us, and big one. And he said, tell me what I should be looking at. And I went through a little bit of it. I said, but you're not going to learn that much about the reinsurance business by a phone call with me. Why are you looking at this? And he said, we got to get the money invested in the next 3 months, or we have to give it back. And that's his equation. And once he buys that company, he's got a fee built in for 5 years or whatever it may be, and he's got some of the upside, and he'd like upside, but if it doesn't work out, he still makes a lot and gets very, very rich by anybody's standards. So it's tough to compete with that.